In this video, we're going to create a new Unity project and start tracking changes. And we're going to do this all from scratch. So first thing to do is, if you have not already, just make sure that you download Unity. Also, make sure that you download GitKraken. You may need to make a GitHub account, but I don't think it's required for GitKraken. You might as well make one anyways, because we're going to be using this later. So if you go over here, just make a new account and make sure that you can log in to GitHub. Make sure that you can log in to GitKraken and make sure that you can use Unity, and then you will be set to go. Okay, so once you have all that, we're going to go into Unity. We're going to make a new project. You know, maybe your hub looks a little different than mine. Not sure at this point. Unity updates so often. So make a new project. I'm just going to keep this simple and make a 3D project just because it comes pretty empty. And we'll call this Unity Kraken game just so that we can identify it. We're going to save this over in a folder somewhere, wherever you save your other projects folders. I like to make a projects and then a Unity folder and then do all my Unity projects in there. Okay, so now that we have that, we have a location, a name. We're going to create that. That may take a little bit, just depending on what template you chose. So just let that finish out. Okay, once that's finished and you're able to be inside of Unity, you can add stuff, you can make changes. Like it doesn't really matter because we're just gonna start tracking all this anyways. Let's make a new C# script. We'll call this Kraken tests. Let's just make a new cube in our scene for a good measure. We'll save it. It doesn't matter. The point here is that you could have already been working on a project for a very long time and then decide, oh wait, maybe I should add this project to version control. And we're going to do it this way on purpose because you don't always know that you want to keep a project, you know, while you're working on it, but then you decide, hey, this could really be something. Then you decide to add it to version control. So we've worked on our project, we've added lots of cool stuff, and now we want to add it to version control. So I'm going to save. I think it's worth mentioning that best practice is to close out of Unity or whatever program you're working in if you want to add it to version control. It usually works fine, but every now and then you could get some files open that you don't have actively saved and it'll miss it and it'll cause problems. It's just good to always close down Unity. If you have Visual Studio open, you probably want to close that down as well. So what we need to do here is we need to start tracking changes for a new project that we've just created. Now, all of these are projects that I've tracked changes for, but we need to add a new one. So to do that inside of GitKraken, all we need to do is click this little folder up here. And once you click that, you're going to see this menu right here. We want to initialize a repository, so that's going to be init. So I'm going to click that. Now we're going to take this step by step because this is a place that commonly creates problems if you don't do everything exactly right. This was actually recently changed by GitKraken, so older tutorials are going to look a little bit different. We need to create a full path that includes the root folder and the name of the folder inside of that root folder. So once we give it a name and then we select a folder, it's going to initialize that entire path. So to do that, what we need to do first is we need to navigate on our hard drive, like on our browser window. You want to find out exactly where this folder that you want to start tracking is. So for me, I keep all of my projects inside of a Unity folder. And so you want to go down the name of the project folder right here, this folder that contains all of these things. I want to capture that name. I'm just going to select it and copy. Make sure I get this exactly right. I'm going to hit paste. Okay, so you can see where it's going to create the folder just by looking at this right here. And that might be correct, but let's double check. We're going to click initialize in. Now this is going to be the parent folder, the root folder that contains all of your projects. So I'm going to select the folder that includes my Unity Kraken game in it right there. Don't click anything, just make sure that you don't have anything selected and select this root folder. So what this is going to do is it's going to combine the root folder with the name of your project within that root folder and give you a directory right here. This is where we're going to start tracking. And if I've done it right, once I actually finish this, we're going to start tracking everything inside of the Unity Kraken game folder. Keep in mind, if you select a folder here and then you try to do the name second, it's going to do something weird and mess up your path. So again, copy paste the name from a browser window as your name first, then select the folder, select the root parent folder, and then it'll give you the path. And this should be correct. We're not really going to change the default branch name. And for the gitignore template, we're going to select Unity. You can actually set this up yourself, but these are just pre-configured by GitKraken to make things easier. And this will do all the main tracking we need. On the license, all of these licenses mean different things. You can do your own research, but I recommend just keeping it simple and doing MIT. And then finally, initialize with LFS. We're not going to do that. We can do that later. It's for tracking large files, which is common in game development, but we're going to take this a step at a time and not try to do too much too quickly. So once you've done these things, click Create Repository. And if you've done this correctly, you will see this. And you will also see inside of your project folder, if you double click, you're going to see this Git folder and a few other Git files. This means that we started tracking successfully. Now, if you messed up one of the steps in the previous window, like maybe you did the initialize end folder first and then gave it a name and then didn't double check or whatever, you misspelled the name of the folder or whatever, what's going to happen is it's going to create a folder inside of here and start tracking that instead, or it's going to put it somewhere else. So if you follow the steps correctly and you check inside of your project folder here, you should see these things and then we're good to go. We get this pop-up here and we are now tracking changes for the new project that we made in Unity. You also see this plus 25. That means that there's 25 files that it needs to add to the repository in order to start tracking them. And this specifically means that there have been 25 changes since the initial commit, which is basically nothing. Like the initial commit is just the setup files. And it means that there's 25 new files that were created with Unity, like our scene file, the new script that we made and all that when we were inside of Unity. 25 things to get caught up to the current version of our project. So before I do that, I do want to say one more thing about the gitignore. You'll see if you navigate into Unity Kraken game, this gitignore file, that got created when we chose the Unity gitignore template. And if you were to open that up, you can open this in whatever WordPad is fine. You can see that it's flagging certain folders to be ignored by version control. And so if we were to make a folder called builds, then it would ignore everything that's inside of that folder. It's ignoring common file types like text mesh profiles. This is just a pre-configured file. Like we could make changes and additions to this gitignore. Like let's say we wanted it to also ignore .mp4 files. We could use similar syntax and put that there. That's all the gitignore was. We just chose a template that had all this stuff set up so that we can just get working really quickly. So now that we understand all that, last thing is we want to make a initial project commit. So all of our initial project files, now that we've started really tracking our changes, inside of GitKraken, if you see this, it means that there are changed files since your last commit. And if I want to save all the changes I made since my last commit, which this is, just creating the, Git initialization, all of our Unity files are in here. We're going to make our first commit to our Unity project. So to do that, click on this work in progress node. We're going to stage all our changes. So unstaged and staged just means, while we're saying stage all changes, this is think of it like a canvas. We're just our working files. We're saying, yes, we want to hold on to all of these files and we want to group them all into a commit. So if they're staged, so we did the stage all, we're saying we want to make a commit with all of these files. So whenever I'm ready, I could unstage a file and then I'll stage it back. If you get in this pop-up right here, you can just close it out with this button, this X, and we'll get back to our other window. So once you have all the files here that you want to give it a name. So I'm going to say initial Unity project commit. So all of our default files. This is our starting point using Unity. And you could put more information here if you want, in case it's helpful for later to find. I'm storing all of our project files that build out with our default Unity project, blah, 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 whatever. We'll do commit. We have a new save state for our project history. We can make more changes. For example, I'm going to go back into Unity, into our Unity Kraken game. Let's just do something simple. Let's say we made a plane. Now we're working on our scene. We're adding new stuff, right? We have our cube. We're going to move it up. Okay, just like that. And we started, let's say we started a white box or something, and we save it. We save our scene file. If I close out of Unity, you'll see if we check back in our version control, we have another work in progress node. This means that there has been a change since our last commit. If we click that, we'll see, oh, we changed the scene file. Well, that makes sense because we added a new plane and we saved our scene. So if we want to save those changes, we're going to do the same thing we did before. Save. We're going to say added a floor to the scene. And this would be such a minor change that we'd probably group it with other things, but whatever, we're just learning it. So we're going to say we do want to commit this change. So click the button. And this is our process. We're making lots of nodes to show changes over time of our project. When you get into a more in-depth project, so for example, this one I had over here, where we're adding a card system, just lots of functionality, easing equations, state machines, and whatever. If you're making big new changes to your project, we can hop back at any point in time and see what were the changes that allowed us to make that new mechanic. And then we could also go back in time and return our project to a previous version and poke around if we wanted. So we're not going to get into that quite yet, but I did want to show you what your project could look like if you're good about tracking your project history. So yeah, I think that's the basics. So this is all tracking local project changes. So this so far only exists on our computer. It only exists inside of this folder. It's just our Git versioning system. We're manipulating our system using GitKraken, and we're just tracking changes that we're making to the files. So if we make more changes to our files, we'll be able to make another commit, and we can add new scripts, functionality, mechanics, whatever. We can make another commit, and then we'll just have a long version history of our project, which is pretty cool because you are protected. If you add some new stuff and it messes everything up, just go back in time and return to whenever the project did work, which is pretty awesome.